Hey folks, this is Chris again from Kentucky Outdoors and Reloading. We're going to jump back into the series with the 222 Remington on reloading, and I've got a bunch of stuff out here on the table we're going to look at. Take a few moments to talk about and kind of go through. We're actually going to throw some powder today, charge our cases, and I've got a couple of bullets that we're going to look at, and then a couple of different powders that we're going to look at and try in our hand loads. And after this video, we'll probably go to seating some bullets. And I'm going to show you how to find lands in your rifle to know where you're going to seat your bullet at if you want to try to keep a magazine length, or if you want to seat that bullet out a little bit longer, if you're going to hand feed those rounds one at a time. So that's some things we're going to talk about in the next video with the bullet seating. But today we're going to talk about weighing your powder. I've got a couple different scales here we're going to look at. And then I've got the our loading manuals laid out here. We've got a Hodgdon and the Lee book and some data from Nosler's website that we're going to look at. And just talk about charging our cases today, and we're going to go from there. So thanks for stopping by and tuning in, and hopefully you'll find this helpful and useful, and nothing else, you'll find it maybe a little entertaining. So stick around. Let me get the camera turned around, and we'll look at some of this other stuff that we've got going on here. Hold tight. Okay, one thing I do want to say before we get started, guys, I've always talked about, and I think you've seen it in the video or two, of the little window air conditioner unit that I have. I also have a small fan that I keep in here as well. But you need to make sure that you have your doors closed, the air is turned off, your fans are turned off, you don't have any wind blowing while you're trying to weigh your powder and charge your cases with your powder. I know some people that say they leave the windows open and the doors open, they don't have a problem with that. That's fine. I'm just going off how I've been taught and some experience that I know of some other reloaders that feel like the wind has played a role in overcharging or undercharging their cases when they were weighing their powder on their beam scale. That wind blowing against the scale or even against your digital scale can give you a false reading. So, my opinion, I encourage you to make sure your fans are turned off, your windows and doors are closed, you don't have any air moving around that may hit your scales or your electronic scales while you're trying to weigh your powder. So, with that said, as you can see in front of you, we have some different manuals laid out, and we have here our Hodgdon manual laid out, and here I've got some data that I've printed off Nosler's website. Here we have our Lee manual out, and I also have my notebook out. I'm taking notes as I go here, so remember, you got to take those notes, keep up with your data, so you can always go back and refer to, oh, this really worked great. How did I do that? Okay, here's your notes. You can go back and you can duplicate that. Or, oh my gosh, that did not work out at all like I thought. Let me go back and see if I made a mistake somewhere. Review your notes. And we have our powder that we're going to use. We're going to be using IMR 3031 and IMR 4198. It kind of hurts me to use that 4198. That's the only pound that I have. And that stuff is very expensive. If you guys have been buying powder lately, 4198 can be a little hard to find, and it is expensive when you do find it. But I bought it from a gentleman that I know locally, and you can see that I wrote on it there, bought used in February of this year. I try to write on all my bottles of powder and primers when I bought them, just kind of help keep up with, that way I know the age of them. But if you take care of your powder, keep it dry and in a cool place, it's going to last you a long time. It's not going to go bad on you. You just got to got to take care of it. And same thing with your primers. But I did want to try the 4198 out just to see how it works out. Like I said, I'm doing this for fun. I like to reload. I just like to see what the gun will do. I feel like I've got a pretty good load already worked up with that 30-31 and that 50 grain Hornady saw point. We're going to load that back up and see if we can duplicate that and make sure that is a good load. I want to confirm that. And then a couple of different bullets that I want to try out with the 4198 is a 52 grain. I don't know if you can see that or not. It's a 52 grain Sierra hollow point boat tail. And then some Nosler 55 grain Varmageddon. We're going to try those out with the 4198 and then the Hornady 50 grain soft point with the 30-31. So if we go back to our notes, and you'll have to excuse my handwriting. My handwriting is not the best. So what we're going to do here is I want to retest this 50 grain Hornady soft point with IMR 30-31 at 21.3 grains. That's where I got that really good group, and we're going to try that out again. I did get a couple of new pieces of brass just so I can load me up a few for sliders or a fouling shot. And then we're going to jump into 52 grain Sierra hollow point boat tail with the IMR 4198. 20 grains max in the Nosler manual. So I'm going to stay away from that. I'm going to load up starting at 18.0 grains, and I'm going to work in 0.3 grain increments, stopping at 18.9. Then we're going to jump down to the 50 grain Nosler Varmageddon. 19.5 max in the Nosler book and 18.7 max in the Lee and Hodgdon book for the IMR 4198. So I know that's a little bit of a discrepancy there. I've always heard that most loading manuals are on the lighter side. Now, you have to use that at your own judgment. I don't encourage you to work up to max loads. If the book says 19.5 is max, I would take that as 19.5 is your max. You have to use your own judgment when you start getting around those max loads. But especially if you're a beginner, I would encourage you to stay off that max load, stay away from it. But with there being a discrepancy here, I am going to work up close to this 18.7. So I know I'm away from that in the Lee and Hodgdon book. And then the Nosler book, I know I'm a grain away from it. So I'm safe there. Going back to what I was saying about your loading manuals being a little light or a little generous, I think some of them want to make sure that the reloader stays safe. They don't want to be liable for if you do hit a max charge and tear your gun up or injure yourself. But I've always heard that the Nosler book is a little closer to what you can actually expect as far as charge weight grains and your velocities. So here lately I've been really watching this Nosler book and trying to kind of go by it a little bit more than I do some of the others. But that doesn't say that that's right or wrong. That's what I've been doing lately. And most of the time, I will say that comparing it to like the Lee book or your Hodgdon book, they're pretty similar. Not too often will you find a discrepancy like we seen there a minute ago with the two charge weights. But anyway, move you back over here. That's what we're going to load up today. I'm not going to show you all of this, and I'm probably just going to run through maybe just a few of these charges so you kind of see and get an idea of what we're doing. And hopefully that'll help you getting your setup going, and we will probably move the camera over here to talk more about the scales that I have out here and some check weights. We'll talk about that for a moment, and we'll try to get into throwing some powder out here. So hold tight, and I'm going to get you moved around here. Okay, guys, we're back here. I've got you looking at a couple different scales here. The green scale up on top on the shelf here is a beam scale, and that is an RCBS scale. That was in the little kit that I bought years ago. That was the only thing I had to weigh powder with for a long time. And then down here we have the little Frankford Arsenal digital scale. I bought that thinking that, I guess because I was still learning and trying to understand the reloading process, I bought that to just double check myself off the beam scale, and I still do that today. The little Frankford Arsenal scale, it seems to work okay. Obviously, it's a entry-level, budget-minded scale. The only thing I don't like about that little scale is it seems like it wants to float a little bit. It's always 0.1 or 0.2 grains heavy, or 0.1 or 0.2 grains low. I'm constantly having to check it and re-zero it. And then the second thing I don't like about it is it shuts off on its own, and it goes off pretty quickly. I forget the time limit, that if you're not using it and it's not staying active, it just shuts itself off, and then you have to turn it back on. You got to re-zero it. It's kind of a pain, really, but like I said, I use it just to double check myself off the beam scale. I will throw the powder on the beam scale. I will trickle on the beam scale. And then once I get it to where I think I'm good, I'll take it off and set it on the little digital scale just to make sure that, yeah, I'm at 20.0 grains. That little scale there may show a 0.1 or plus or minus or something like that. So I know I'm good. I do have a set of check weights, and you can see that I've did have, well, this little thing's gone off already, but I've got 18 grains in that pan, and I was checking the scale here. It was showing 18.1, but I had the beam scale set at 18.0, and I've adjusted it. You can adjust your scale here. When you turn this little wheel, it'll raise or lower this, and you can center the zero line on your beam line, and just use the check weights to confirm zero on the beam scale. And then, like I said, I'd set it down here and double check, and this was showing 18.1. So if I throw 18 grains on this and it looks like it's dead center of that line, and I come down here and it shows 18.1, I'm putting it in the case and I'm shooting it. I'm not worried about being off 0.1 grains. I've never had a deer or a coyote fuss at me because I was 0.1 grains off. So, but that's trying to be consistent. That goes back to where we were talking about in the earlier videos of being consistent with your methods. As long as you try to stay consistent with your charge weights, you're going to see a little better accuracy when you're testing your rounds at the range. I would encourage you, if you're going to put your powder into something else other than the container it comes in, use a glass bowl or jar or something to put your powder in. Then I have this little lead dipper that I kind of scoop out of, pour it in a pan, get it pretty close. I've got a trickler. I'll set it out here in a minute, and then I'll trickle it up from there. And then we've got the little Hornady funnel here. It's aluminum and you've got different ends that you can use for different calibers. This is 224. That's what we'll be using for the 222. I just bought that earlier this year, and I really like that thing. That thing is nice. I wish I'd bought that a long time ago. I know there's several others out now. I think Frankford Arsenal's got one. I think Short Action Customs has one that looks really nice. I want to think RCBS might have one as well. I know there's several out there, and I can't think of all of them right now off the top of my head, but I like the Hornady one. I just like the way it looked, and the reviews about how it functions really well for throwing powder. So, and it was at a price I didn't mind paying, so that's what we went with, was the Hornady. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to get some powder put in our little glass bowl. We're going to weigh a charge on the beam scale. Then we're going to trickle up. Then we're going to come down to our electronic scale just to confirm our charge weight. Then we're going to dump our powder. And then I'm also going to show you a little tip, I guess. Like, I make a little note that I put with my rounds. A lot of people will take a Sharpie and write right on the side of the brass case the charge weight. Nothing wrong with that. I used to do that. It doesn't hurt anything. I just got to where I was taking a little note and putting it with the rounds that I load to just to have it there to look at. So I guess let me get this camera repositioned and we'll talk some more about charging these cases, and we'll get to it. Hang tight. All right, guys, I think I've got you positioned so you can see that pretty well right now. I think you might be able to see that I have the little Frankford Arsenal scale turned back on. I've got the pen on there. You're going to notice that I have a a dryer sheet underneath it. I've read a lot over the years that doing that with some of your electronic scales can help take away any kind of static electricity. I've never had an issue with static electricity during my reloading. I'm not a very staticky type of person. I don't know if that's a word to use or not, but I think you know what I'm trying to say. But I figured, what's it going to hurt? If it doesn't do anything, oh well, I've wasted a dryer sheet. If it helps, then that's great. I've got it under there. So I usually go ahead and put that under there just to have it for a safety measure. I haven't really noticed one way or the other that it helps or it doesn't help. I used that little scale for years without the dryer sheet, but in the last couple of years I've started using that. So anyway, we have the scale on. We take our pan off. We see we're at 0, and there's a little circle there with a dot in it that shows that it is back to its 0 position and it's stable. So I can set my pan on there. I try to put it in the center of the pad on the scale. We're going to tear that out. Now we're at 0. So we're showing 0.0 grains. Okay, and then another thing I talked about was the powder. I do want to encourage you that at this stage in the game, only have one powder out on your bench at a time. Do not have 2, 3, 4 jugs of powder sitting out. It would be very easy to get that mixed up and confused with something and throw the wrong powder, and before you know it, you've used the wrong powder with an incorrect charge weight, and you've messed your gun up, or you've hurt yourself or hurt somebody else at the range. So only have one powder at a time out on your bench while you're using that. I was taught that when I first started. You'll see other people online on the forums and YouTube videos, and other guys will also mention that and encourage you to do that. So I encourage you to make that one of your big safety tips that you follow for yourself. Only have one powder at a time out on your bench and use one powder at a time. So with that being said, we're going to open this guy up and we're going to pour some in our little bowl here. Now I'm just loading some of this up. Like we said, we want to confirm that that charge weight is a good load, and then I'm going to use some of that same load just to have for some ciders or fowlers or whatever you want to call it. So I'm setting that out on the bench, and that's the only powder I have out on my bench right now is this. So this is the one I'm using. It's sitting here so I can see it. I know what I'm using. That helps remind me while I'm throwing the charge of 21.3 grains. That's what we're using. That's the grain weight that I'm charging with. And I'm going to make my notes for my brass as I charge it that this is what I've used. Now, when I get done, I'm going to clean all this up and put it away before I ever bring that other powder out onto the bench. That way there's no confusion. Nothing gets mixed up. No powders get mixed in with each other. So we're using IMR 3031. And you notice this little guy has gone off again. So we're going to turn him back on. I think that I'm going to go ahead and put these charge or check weights up and get them out of my way. We don't need those any longer. So we're at 0. We're stable. I'm going to set that pan on there. Now, see, guys, a while ago when I put that pan on, it was at 144.4 grains. Now it's showing 144.5. That's where I was talking about a while ago. This thing kind of fluctuates, 0.1 above or 0.1 below. So I usually let it sit there for just a second, let it kind of stabilize, and then while I'm doing that, I can pick my mess up here. There, it just dropped down to 144.4. So we'll let it sit there for just a second to let it settle in and make sure that's where it is at. And I can get this out of the way. And let me get this over here and put it up so it's not in our way. Okay. So now that it's still 144.4, we're going to re-zero that. I'm going to come up here and set this pan on my beam scale. Right now we have it set for 18 grains. We are looking for 21.3. And I'm going to try to get you turned around here and get you, if you'll just bear with me just one moment so I can bump you around and make a jarring mess out of this. So each one of these marks is 5 grains. You got a 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, and then that big mark's 25, and then you're going to go back through that 30, 35, 40, 45, and then 50. So we're looking for 21.3. So we're at 15 now. I'm going to bump this up one more line. There's 20. And we're going to go back down here, move this guy down to our 1. So there's 21. And then each one of these little lines is 0.1. There's 1, 2, 3. And that's free. So now we're sitting at 21.3. And I forgot to get our trickler out. Let me get this guy. Let me just pause this real quick, get this trickler set up, and then I'll be back. Hold tight, guys. Okay, so I got this little trickler set up here. That's an RCBS trickler as well. I didn't give you the scale model number a while ago. That is an RCBS 502 for those that are interested. I know there's a lot of different models out there and some newer ones. Like I said, I got that this guy in that little set years ago that I bought off a gentleman. Just recently got this trickler, and there was a guy locally that was getting out of reloading, and I picked up a bunch of stuff off him at a pretty good price. That was in that. It looked like it was brand new and never been used, to be honest with you. But so what we'll do is, to fill this guy up, we're going to pour some powder in him. That way we can trickle up to our charge weight after a while. And I'll have to get that down and look at it here in just a second. Let me see what we got going on here. Hold tight. Oh yeah, we're good. We got plenty in there. Okay. All right. We're not going to load up but just, I think, 6 rounds of this anyhow, so we're not going to need much. So what I normally do, and people do this differently, so you just have to find a method that works for you guys and what you feel comfortable using. So I've got my pan in there. I've got some powder in my little dipper, and I usually just come in here by hand and pour this in and keep adding to it carefully and slowly until I see that guy move on me. Okay. So now he's stopped, and I'm going to move the camera here just so you can see. Oh, sorry guys, I didn't mean to bump the camera there. But you can see that we're clearly overcharged. We have too high of a charge weight in there. So that's not good. We don't want that. So I'm going to have to dump just a little bit out of that pan, and then that way I can trickle up to it. So let me sit you back down here, get you repositioned so you can see. Okay, I think you can see that pretty good. So I'm just going to grab this pan, and I'm going to dump just a little bit out back into this bowl where we were getting our powder from. So now you can see that it didn't even move that scale. So now we're going to scoot our trickle over here, and we're going to turn this guy. We want to be careful that we don't get right on our pan. We don't want our pan touching anything. So trying to get it so it misses that pan. There goes some powder out the little tube. Now we're just going to keep turning this guy, and it just lets a kernel or two at a time kind of fall out. The faster you turn that, the more is going to come out at one time. You want to be careful that you don't. Okay, so now our beam is starting to move. I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but so I'm just going to slow down here a little bit, turn it a time or two and stop, let that beam settle out. We're getting very close, guys. Real close. All right, I think I need just maybe one more little drop. Okay, so now I've trickled up to the charge weight that I wanted, and I'll try to move the camera again here and not bump you, hopefully, so that you can see that 0. And I know that's hard to get the camera straight on with that scale, and that's another reason I have this scale setting up on a shelf, is so that while I'm sitting here, I've pretty much got this thing at eye level with me, and I can see directly at that line that yes, my beam line and my 0 line are lined up with each other. That way I'm not standing above it looking down on it, or I'm not below it looking up at it. I'm at eye level looking directly toward it, and I can see clearly that those two lines are lined up. So I'll have to move the camera again here so you can see the digital scale. I'll get you turned back around. We're just going to set it on the beam scale real quick, confirm that it is at 21.3 grains, and then we're going to dump it into the case. So let me get the camera repositioned again, guys. Okay, we got you sitting down here looking at this little digital scale again. We got our pan of powder here, and you can see that IMR 3031 is a pretty good little stick powder there. We're going to set it right on our scale. We'll try to move you around here so you can see that. 21.3. So we know we are good to go. Now, I'm going to try to set you back down gently. Now we're going to get our funnel. We're going to place it over our case. And I'm going to try to pour this to the side so the powder will flow smoothly and evenly down through the funnel. Usually give a little tap, make sure nothing's sticking in the funnel as you lift it off. Sometimes I'll kind of gently lay that over on the edge and just kind of give a little tap. Make sure that powder is seated down in the case good. And looks like, I mean, that's a pretty good little charge feel right there, in my opinion. Looks like we're probably right. Well, let me find you here. Trying to do this off to the side. Looks like we're right up at the bottom of the shoulder here. So that's a pretty good charge feel, I think. And maybe that's why it shot so well. So that's our first charge weight that we throw there. I'm going to set it over here by itself in the loading tray. Let me give you a shot of that. That's that guy there we just put in there. And like I talked about, I usually make me a note. I put on here IMR 3031, 21.3 grains, and I wrote down there ciders. So these first few, I'm going to load up some of my ciders or my Fowlers, and I'm going to keep that note with that charge or with those cases. So I'm going to load up 3 of those. One, 2, 3. I'm going to put that right there. I'm going to get the other 2 done and put that there with it. And then we'll start on the next row, which is going to be the another 21.3 grains. We're just going to confirm that load did shoot well last time. And then we're going to move on to some IMR 4198. Let me get these 3031s loaded up. When I get the 4198 back out on the bench, I'll bring you back. So that way you don't have to sit and watch all the boring stuff. So give me just a couple of minutes, guys. All right, guys, we're back after dumping that IMR 3031. I have cleaned everything up. I've cleaned out my bowl. I've wiped it out, make sure it's clean. We wiped out our dipper. I've taken the funnel apart, screwed this off, wiped it out, made sure it was clean. We've emptied our trickler, wiped it out, made sure it was clean. We wiped our dustpan out, made sure it was clean. Dustpan or powder pan. I had clean on my mind. I guess I was thinking dustpan. But all the IMR 3031 has been put back in its original container. It's been put up in a cabinet here at the reloading bench. It is off the bench now. We do not have it here out with us while we're working. We have our new powder out now, the IMR 4198. Having a hard time talking. So we're going to get it ready. I'm going ahead and open this guy up. We're going to pour some out in our bowl here. That's probably way more than enough. And I'm going to go ahead and fill up our trickler. So we'll have it ready to go. And then we're going to start throwing some charge weights for this. at 18.0 is where we're going to start at for our 52 grain Sierra bullet. And we'll kind of set him back out of the way for just a minute. You put the lid back on this guy. And I'm going to leave him sitting right there. Our digital scale is at 0 right now, so that's good. I have my little note ready for the 52 grain Sierra IMR 4198, 18.0 grains. I'm going to put that with my charge cases over here in the reloading tray in just a moment. So I have the beam scale set back at 18.0 grains. And I don't think you all are able to see that beam scale. Not going to be able to get it in probably the digital scale. I think maybe you can see what's going on there. So we're going to go with it anyway. So what we're going to do is we're going to get us a little bit in our scoop. Let's stop. Let's just touch this guy and make sure that he is steady. I'm going to dump some powder here. A little bit at a time. Just kind of keep an eye on that beam. Make sure I don't get too carried away. When it starts moving, we need to stop. Looks like we're right there at it. I might have got lucky on that one. So let me just give it a little drop here. I'll have to turn it a few times. I want to be careful because I'm so close to my 0, but we'll have to turn this trickler just a little bit to get the powder flowing there when it kernel. Let me turn it just a little bit more. There went another kernel. There went another one. I think I'm right there at 18.0. Let me double check here. See what we got. So that's showing 18.1. I'm going with it. I'm not going to, as long as that'll stay pretty consistent between the two, I feel like I'm right there. So I'm going to run with it. Slowly pour that in. Give a little tap. Make sure that everything is down the funnel. Give it just a little tap to kind of seat that powder down there. That's still a pretty good looking loaded case there with powder. I mean, it's that, you know, you don't want to really light load. I mean, there's nothing wrong with a light load, but you want a good case feel, good volume feel of powder in your case, and that's pretty good. That's almost as much as, that's a little less than that 3031, but not much. So we're going to put him right there, and I will do another one here just so you can see. And we're going to pour some in. And then I'm going to slow down there a little bit. There it starts moving. I'm going to be lucky if I didn't go over. Looks like it's going to settle. Yeah, I'm probably 0.1, 0.2 over. So let me dump just a hair out of this. A hair, meaning probably just a few kernels there. And we'll set it back up here very gently. And we're gonna, am I getting my big head in the camera? Sorry guys, I gotta get down here so I can see that beam scale there. So we're just a little under. We're gonna have to trickle up, which is fine. That's really what we want to do, or what we would rather do. looks like I'm gonna call that good right there. And make sure our powder's in the center of the pan. That's saying 18.2. I'm going to dump just a couple of kernels out. Looks like I might have got about 3 or 4 there. And then that's still showing. Now let's see what we got. Just to confirm here. That is 18.0 on the nose on that little scale. But now that's fluctuated 0.1 grain. I'm going to go back up here and confirm that, yes, we are right at 18.0. So, I'm going to take me a case. I'm going to pour this in very slowly. Give a little tap. Make sure the powder is down the funnel. I'm going to give a little tap. Make sure that powder is down in the case good. That's all we're going to do, guys. It is a little painstaking, but to me, it's worth it. It takes the time to ensure that we're being consistent with our charge weights. We're double checking ourselves. There's probably a better way to do it than I do it. This is just how I do it. Like I've said many times, there's many different ways to do this. You just got to figure out a way that works for you, that you're comfortable with, and that you feel like is working for you in your loads. So I'm going to finish the rest of these up. I don't think you really want an hour-long video watching me dump powder. So when I get done, we'll come back and we'll close this out. So let me finish this up. We'll be back. All right, guys. So I think we're going to close this video out with charging the cases, throwing the powder, however you want to word it. So just to kind of recap a little bit, we use some IMR 4198 and IMR 3031. Use some various charge weights there that we went over. We also used a beam scale and electronic scale. There are other type powder dispensers and scales to use. Again, like I've always say, there's many different ways to do this. You just got to find what you're comfortable with using, what suits you and your needs and your style of reloading. I don't think there's really a right or wrong way. It's just what suits you and what you're comfortable with, and sometimes what fits your budget. So I've toyed with the idea of getting an electronic powder dispenser like the Lyman Gen 6, I believe it is. Then RCBS has got like 3 or 4 different types out there of their cheaper ones. The Link Master or something. I forget exactly what it is now. They've got so many different names for their models that they have. And then Frankford Arsenal has one, the IntelliDropper. Seems like it does pretty good. It's got some mixed reviews, as the Lyman Gen 6 does too, I believe. But anyway, like I said, you just kind of have to find what suits you and your style. So I think next video is going to be, I'm going to show you how I find the lands in the rifle and how I get my length for the bullet seating depth that I want. And then we're going to seat some bullets and have the die set back up on, or the press with the bullet seating die set back up on the bench, and we'll go ahead and seat the bullets in the case and at that point, we're going to be done. After that, we'll be going back to the range to do some more testing and see what we got going on. And that last video that I put out with the little JC Higgins 22, thank you all for taking the time to watch that video. I've got a lot of views on that, and I really appreciate everyone taking the time to stop by and check that video out. That little rifle is just so cool. I still haven't shot it yet, and I may take it to the range with me when we go do these test loads and try that out, just to plink with it and see how it runs. But I have been looking at a Weaver 4X scope, set 4-power, fixed 4-power scope, and a set of Weaver rings. Looks to be in really good shape at a fair price. I think that age of scope and that style of scope would look really good on that rifle. It would be period correct for it, and I think it would just kind of set that rifle off. It will just make it look nice. And so hopefully by then I'll have that scope on there and you guys can see that little Weaver scope on there. So thanks again for stopping by, checking the reloading video out. Next video we're going to seat some bullets, and then after that we'll be back to the range to try our hand loads out. So we'll talk to you guys later. Have a good one. God bless.